Sloppy Spoilers with your host, DT2. What's up, y'all? It's DT2. Welcome to another episode of Sloppy Spoilers. Today or tonight, we're going to be talking about The Wheel of Time, Season 1, Episode 6, subtitled The Grits Finna Hit the Pan, also subtitled The Flame of Tar Valon, but I like my subtitle better. So let me bring in my co-host. Let's give a big welcome to David Nemesis, Make It Darker, Howard.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? I'm here from Rockin' and Rollin' Howard household in California. So I'm ready to shake and get going.
Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Steve Shadewing. I have read the books, Sellers.
Well, I wouldn't overstate it quite like that. But the Flame of Tar Valon could probably be more properly called the Old Flame of Tar Valon, but we'll get into that and how bad an idea this was.
Welcome to Dr. Jeff, Dr. Fate. You don't know good monsters like I know good monsters, Bracy.
Man, he's got multiple doctorates.
Well, you know, I studied at Juilliard as well as Harvard, and the major study was in monsterology, of course. Pleasure to be here, DT Sidhe.
So, our live audience, you may have to forgive me eating a little dinner right now because I have made my world famous chili and I've been working all day, so I'm hungry. So I'm just keeping
I love me a good chili
out there because you don't know good chili like I know good chili. So we're going to talk about.
If we're on food real quick, I was watching a show the other day, DT. When we meet each other in person, you got to get me some deep dish pizza because I have never had deep dish pizza.
Oh, dude. Well, I will indoctrinate you into the ways of Chicago pizza and you will never be the same.
Okay.
Oh, my God.
Let's have a chili pizza.
The Chicago way.
The Chicago way. You ain't had no deep dish.
This is the way.
Okay. And we have multiple places you can get some deep dish. So, yeah, no, I'm going to hook you up. You don't have to worry about that. Okay. So, tonight's episode, just to give my initial thoughts, I mean, my co-hosts already know what I'm going to say. We've been together long enough and we know each other well enough now until they already know what I'm going to say. But for those of you that are watching live or watching on the replay, here it comes. I don't have a problem with a twist or a surprise or a plot line that kind of throws you for a loop. In fact, that's what makes stories fun. But when it undermines everything you've been trying to sell from the jump, it pushes me out of it. You just push me out of it. So by that, I mean, tonight's events in this episode show us that it's all a lie. You don't trust this cabal of women that you've built because women are the only ones that can tap into the one power, but it actually got corrupted because men can use it. But you don't trust the women in the White Tower. One. Number two, in the opening sequence of the first episode, Moraine says that a man thought he could tame the world, but he broke the world, and he's the arrogance, so we have to fix it. You don't understand the arrogance of saying, comes down to two people, we know what's best for everything, and we're going to fix it, and we ain't telling nobody what we're doing. Number three, when your whole game is based on a hookup. I'm not saying that's wrong or bad. I'm just saying, would you make the same decisions or behave the same way? Would there even be any objectivity if you're not romantically involved? And I'll throw in a number four. We're actually going to launch on number four. Number four is that I was completely underwhelmed by the Amyrlin seat. I thought we were going to see, because Alana showed us more power than the Amyrlin seat. I thought we were going to see, and this is going to be the jumping off point, and I'm going to throw it to y'all. I forget which comic, but there's an X-Men page where the X-Men are in trouble, and it's Scott and Wolverine about four others. And I forgot what's coming after them. And Wolverine, as usual, Wolverine and Scott have that, always tense relationship like the real Captain America and the real Hawkeye do in the comics, although theirs is a little bit lighter. But it's talking trash because we men, we're always talking trash. That's what we do. And so what happens is Scott says, hold on a second. He says, hold my beer, takes his glasses off, and then the whole panel is red. And he unleashes the mother, of all optic blasts. When the panel comes back in full color again, you see an area clear as if it was like a bomb blast. And Wolverine says, okay, Summers, I remember why you're the leader now. So
yeah, that was when they were Whedon-Cassidy run.
What'd you say?
That was from the Whedon-Cassidy run.
Okay. Yeah, I thought so. So
beat me to it.
So in other words, they use the most basic principle of storytelling, which is show, don't tell. I was expecting that type of display of power, that type of mastery, or that type of this is why I'm in charge scenery from the Amyrlin Seat, the way they talked her up and the way they, pseudo reverenced her. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But I was really underwhelmed that what we got was seen when she's a child, and she's channeling when she's a child, probably better than most people. But it's more, I'm a victim, and they persecute me, and they burn down my father's house. And my father needs my help, and it was more of that. And then we go from that to she's just who she is, and I'm just like, no, I need to see why you are stronger, smarter, faster, more dominant, more worthy. I need to see whether it's the battles you fought, whether you found, because we've seen that from Nynaeve. I need to see you in a forest doing more than Alana did. I need to see you in a room doing more than Nynaeve did. But what we got was, this is kind of like my sad story, and y'all just, bow down and give me props because all this, and I'm like, So with that, I'm going to throw it to my co-host. Let's start with the opening sequence, which is all about the Amyrlin Seat and all about her background. And again, I was just really underwhelmed. So tell me what you thought. Start with Nemesis.
Okay. Mine's going to be short and sweet. I'll just sum it up in bullet points. Okay. From points that I like the best to points that I'm not going to say hate. I'm just going to say I didn't like as much.
Okay.
So we'll start off with point number 1 of this episode was the Mines of Moria made an appearance. Then point number 2 was hold on, I just lost my train of thought. We have mirrors that lead to going down Game of Thrones style. Then we have Nynaeve should die. And then we'll and I lost my other point, and the guys know why I lost my other point, so I'll leave it at 3. But those are the 3 points that stuck out for me. And as I was watching this, the Mines of Moria copy was the best, and Nynaeve, as usual, takes the cake for me. And then the middle point was all about, okay, I guess we're adding this, so we'll I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Nynaeve takes the cake of irritation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yunfar, bake the cake of irritation.
Yeah.
Every week. Go ahead, Bracing. Original thoughts, and what did you think about our introduction to the vaunted Amyrlin Seat?
All right, for the overall thoughts on the episode, I'm with you. This episode breaks so much. It breaks the lore they've been trying to establish in multiple ways that we'll get into. It breaks the idea of the bond between a warder and an Aes Sedai. I was like, you guys, you keep telling us, but Moraine's always the exception for some reason, her and Lan. So that doesn't make any sense. Everything you've told us and shown us about the bonding between these pairs doesn't work. And then further, the oh shoot! See, now I got distracted by what Nemesis said, so I lost one of my points. Curse you, middle age!
I affected you.
Yeah, Nynaeve, of course, is just insufferable. just because Nemesis mentioned it, it's so insufferable. And it gets to a point like by the I've finally gone ahead and watched to the end of the series, and by the last episode, like I was vocalizing this. I was like, God, I can't stand her. Why do you make this character I can't stand so much? And when it looks like she's gonna die, I actually get yes, cheering her potential death. That's how much I've come to dislike this character. But I'm going to stick with this episode. As for the as for the intro, yeah, you're right, Steve. You're right, man. And as DT like says, you're the most charitable among us. The opening, I didn't think the Amlin seat necessarily had to be uber powerful right away. Although I get your point. It would make a lot of sense if she showed the skills of a true prodigy. And this is what led her having to go to the White Tower, that she became something to be feared. Like, so much power in the hands of a child, that makes a lot of sense. And I can see why you go there. I'm also not opposed to the idea that, like, she started humbly and then her power just escalates as she learns how to use it. But I did very quickly get tired of the oh, poor me kind of beginning, like the world hates me, I'm persecuted, I'm an X-Man in this world where, like, women are all powerful. Why is she being treated like this? I don't get it. The only thing I did like about the scene, the opening, was I liked the relationship between her and her father. That seemed very sweet to me. The actors had a good chemistry, and there's something about daddy's little girl. That's a special kind of bond you have. And my own wife used to go fishing with her father a lot when he was alive. And so there's something I could really appreciate in that scene. And maybe that was a bias in it, but I did like at least that aspect of it.
Okay. If Steve doesn't like you as a character, you have messed up. If you push Jeff to the point where he's yelling at the screen, and he can't find a mythological or story reason to justify what he's seeing, you have messed up. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, usually I can keep my yap shut while I'm watching something, but I just, the last couple episodes, like, oh God, shut up.
I told you.
Couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take it anymore.
Opening.
I will say, I will say on the subject of 90, there was like one point that mitigates it slightly, and that is the scene where Moraine goes up to Nynaeve and says, "Look, if you want to claim the title of wisdom, you better start showing some."
Yeah.
I was like, that was excellent. We need more of that.
I just remembered my
Shut
other
her
point.
up.
Can I throw my other point in real quick?
Go ahead, Nims. Go ahead.
Okay, my other point was this one. Somebody has a femboy simp boyfriend hypocritically. That was my other point.
Yes. Yeah, and that particular character, I wasn't surprised by that at all. I just like, that sounds about right for this character. And she's another one we don't like, so take your guesses as to which one it is. Quite a few. But with this episode, I have the same issues, but I think for slightly different reasons, having read the book. And yes, you're exactly right that the relationship that is shown undermines everything and it breaks everything. And this is the fault of the showrunners, and I blame them completely because that was not in the books. They completely made this up, and it was once again the same problem we talked about last time, which is they're trying to sex everything up because they want to compete with Game of Thrones and have all that kind of content, because Games of Thrones did it and The Witcher did it, and so we have to do it the same way. And then they introduce it in a way that absolutely does not work. And it absolutely breaks the lore, as you said, and it completely undermines the other relationships that we're talking about, namely the bond between the Aes Sedai and the Warder. Because they decided to make a romantic relationship where it was not there, according to Jordan, they have pretty much torpedoed this entire part of the plot. Not great. And then beyond that, I just felt like, as far as the intro with Swan Sancha, the soon-to-be a Merlin seat, my main problem was the entire scene adds nothing and is pointless. I mean, you could get what is meaningful about it is okay. She comes from a humble background and she's a fisherman's daughter. You could establish that in like a couple lines of dialogue at most. You don't need an entire intro scene like that to do that. The only reason I kind of liked it is because the actors had chemistry. Yeah, that was there. And that particular actor is one of those that you see on BBC shows all the time. He was a Time Lord on Doctor Who, one of those guys that's always in the background. But he's one of those veteran British actors, and you kind of know who he is, even if you don't know his name. So that was nice, but did we need to see that? No. Once again, this show has bad time management where it shows you things you don't need to see or that don't matter, and it cuts away from things you kind of do need to see, and not developing enough, which is the lore and some of the characters and the dynamics that really were kind of glossed over a little bit this episode, because most of it was spent on the Aes Sedai, on Moraine and Swan Sancha, and to a certain extent on some of the others. So yeah, that's a complete fail. And I will tell you, Nynaeve, aside from that one moment with Moraine, was insufferable and terrible. And especially so, it's like, okay, you're not just, mouthing off to somebody like Moraine now. You are bad-mouthing somebody who runs an entire order of people that can wipe you away in just a thought with a snap of their fingers. How are you this stupid? Like, even as powerful as you supposedly are, the Merlin seat probably could kick your ass because she knows more about how to use the one power than you do. And that's leaving out the fact that she knows, that she has an entire army of Aes Sedai that are willing to still you within half a second if you cross her the wrong way. So why is it that you're bad-mouthing her like a moron? I mean, it's awful. Absolutely awful. But
the Emerald seat should have gone Saruman v. Gandalf on her.
Okay. Since y'all went there, because I was going to make this point later, but since we're here now, we can go on and jump in with it now. And it's that, especially the military men among us know that you can't tolerate insubordination, and you can't be seen in public having somebody beneath you in rank front you off and just take it or blow it off, and there's no retaliation, there's no drop and give me 20, there's no getting in somebody's face, there's no type of, you can't do that. Same thing happens if you're in a classroom full of kids and one of your kids front you off, or one of the students wants to take control of the classroom, you have to shut it down so you can maintain control of the classroom, or else the kids aren't going to respect you from that point forward. So I completely throw out the notion that someone that powerful would have no retaliatory response to being fronted off by multiple people during the episode, but especially Nynaeve, because Nynaeve is like Jean Grey when she first started out. All that potential, but I don't know what to do with it. And I'm freaked out by it. She's like a Wanda when she first started out. You don't know what I'm doing. Is there such a thing as chaos magic? Is there not? But you're a novice. Your powers manifest. You don't have control over when they manifest or how they manifest. You're not even sure how you can do what you can do. And then you're talking to someone who, as Steve said, is the head of your order, who theoretically can speak a word or give a snap or just give a nod. And you're out of here. I mean, it's your last day on Earth. So when I see that kind of stuff happening, I'm like, these are people that don't understand power structures. They don't understand any kind of dynamic, whether it's parent-child, whether it's teacher-student, whether it's military, whatever it is. I'm like, no, you don't get to talk if you have a problem with anyone politically. You can't walk up to them. I'm talking about any leaders, senators, House Republicans, Senate, House of Representatives, anybody that you want to go to that's in any type of authority over you in a political sense. If you go to the rally, you can't walk up to them and just give them a piece of your mind, because Secret Service will shoot you dead. You can't do that. Even if you don't agree with what they're saying, and the higher up you go, the more true that is and faster that happens, because you can't do that.
Yep. And they also missed an opportunity as well, because this could have been the moment where they could have established why she's the Merlin seat. They could have had Swan Sancha absolutely, use the display of one power to shut her down and show the Charles Xavier versus Jean Grey battle and have her win that. And so that would establish immediately how tough she is, because she can do that to Nynaeve, then she's pretty tough. So that would back up that in addition to that. So you could have accomplished two things in one scene, and it doesn't happen. Once again, Nynaeve gets away with everything.
I will say that, like you were talking about the military, I mean, there are people that earn the right to talk to you. but it's like a mom and a dad. It's like parents. It's mostly done behind the scenes. You have to earn that right to do it. And even when someone does it, like when I was a junior officer, my platoon sergeant knew a hell of a lot more than me. But when he would suggest things to me, it was always done respectfully if it was done in front of the men, you know.
That's right.
And you know, not only that, the Emerald Sea praised her. She praised her for doing it. I mean, if you don't want to go off, you know, you don't always have to go off or have a show of power. But if we had seen the Amulet Seat just sit there calmly and just looked at her with their eyebrow up, rock style, until the knee folded, I mean, that would have
something like Gandalf to Bilbo in Fellowship of the Ring. You know, the whole point where Bilbo tries to accuse him of robbing him, and Gandalf's like, "Do not take me for a petty conjurer of cheap tricks."
Yeah,
that kind of a moment where she's calm at one for the most part, and then she has that moment of intensity that shows you how powerful and how dangerous she really is, and and as an indication that you really are crossing lines you should not be crossing. Something like that would have worked.
I think I'd like to see something like they do in anime a lot. When you see this character seems to be like everything's all chill, and all of a sudden they raise their power level without making a move or a gesture, but all of a sudden they let the people around them, they're keeping all their power contained, but all of a sudden they become aware of just how huge their power, their aura is. And they tend to make the background shake and do a little bit of speed lines, and all of a sudden the character goes like, "I can't breathe in their presence." Just like, this is what you're in front of. Think about that.
The ogre face comes up behind them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Okay, this is going to sound funny, and it might be a can of worms, but I think it's relevant, so I'm going there. In African American culture, you can't talk to people that have authority over you like that. You can't even do that when you're an adult. African American culture makes a clear line of demarcation between when you're a child and when you're an adult. And even when you are actually an adult, you still can't talk to your parents or your elders like that. So, for example, if you're 50 and you're talking to somebody 70, you can't call them by their first name because we're not peers. That's a culture thing. So for me to observe two Black women and Nynaeve's fronting her off, like, "Don't talk to me like you know me." Wait, I was like, wait just a minute, because no African-American woman or elder or anybody in the seat of power that I know could you do stuff like that. I've seen preachers rebuke people in the congregation because they fronted them off while they was preaching. They stopped preaching and said, you don't talk to me like that. So for me personally, I was like, no, I didn't buy any of that exchange, number one. Number two, what I wanted to see was a full-on Anakin Skywalker when Padme finds him on Mustafar and she comes out of the ship and Obi-Wan has stowed aboard and he unfortunately force chokes her. Anakin is just going off and he's so out of control to the point where the thing he loves the most, his wife, his pregnant wife, is like, "Don't you turn against me." And then he force chokes her. Now, I thought that was a funny plot point, but the point I'm trying to make is that that's what I wanted to see here. I want to see the Emerald Seat levitate Nynaeve up in the air, maybe throw a little force choke in, throw her against the wall or something. And she's like, no, little girl, you don't talk to me like that. I done paid my dues to be where I am. And you don't come in here as a guest in the White House for the first time and presume that you can speak to me that way in public or private. It's what needed to happen from a storytelling point of view and from my point of view, a cultural point of view. It jumped out at me. I was like, If I said something wrong, my grandmother would get up out of her grave and slap the teeth out of my mouth. Yeah, "Boy, what's wrong with you?" I'm sorry, grandmama.
You didn't want to stop at her getting thrown against the wall, Dave. Come on, just admit it, DT. You didn't want it to stop there.
Well, I don't know if I had time to tell you the real scenario. Here's the real scenario. What should have happened was Emerald Seat should have turned around, her left hand started to glow, and then she throws fireballs at Nynaeve until she's bloody and broken on the ground. That would have been cool too. But the point I'm trying to make is that it's another thing that culturally and as a writer story-wise and as a fan threw me out of it, because you cannot maintain order or your mystique or your fear when you do stuff like that. It's very common for a young pup to challenge the head of the pride, the main lion. That's coming. But the lion knows you got to put the young pup in their place so they understand how it goes. And one of the reasons that's important is because order saves your life. When you're young and reckless and you don't know what you're doing, you think you're invincible, you think you're invulnerable, and you got a smart mouth. You don't understand as a young person that all of that can get you dead. So someone older than you has to put you in check and say, we don't speak that way. We don't speak to authority that way. When I tell you to stay in line as we're crossing the ravine, it's because I don't want you to die. I'm not just flexing. I'm trying to show you how order saves your life. So that's what I mean on so many levels that just rang so false with me. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. And then it undermined an already underwhelming character. Someone that's supposed to be all that, but we don't see why you're all that. We just have to accept that you're all that, but you tolerate that kind of disrespect, and basically you don't flex. Now you need to flex hard against that girl, not just because we don't like her, but because if she thinks she can get away with that, she has great power, but it's unchecked, it's uncontrolled. She doesn't know when it manifests. She got emotional and it manifested, and things just happen. That's dangerous without discipline. Okay, power without discipline is dangerous. So I mean, from any angle you want to look at it at, a parental point of view, a cultural point of view, a storytelling point of view, a military point of view, this was all out of bounds. And I was like, I said the same thing Jeff said. I was like, is she dead yet?
See, like the significant problem I think I had, and I would mention this when I was watching the last episode with Jennifer, is like, I said, like, she's got this endless chip on her shoulder, and we don't know why. If we knew why, that would help with the attitude of the character a lot. But I don't know where this boundless anger is coming from. And so that's a problem.
Well, remember,
and you had the perfect opportunity to show why, and it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Well, remember, like we talked about before, you must recognize the euphemisms of the show. Like I told you, that gentling was a euphemism for castration. You have to understand that Nynaeve is the angry Black woman, or the angry woman of color, or the angry woman that feels like her anger is justified just because it is. Because you're right, from a storytelling point of view, if we could have seen something in her background or seen an experience that makes her that way, might be a little bit easier to process. But she feels justified in everything that she does. And I'm like, you have not earned. You don't have to be likable, but you do need to be justifiable. You haven't earned in the eyes of the audience the right to go off on every single person you know and people that know more than you. And so, that's what she represents to me. Okay, let's springboard from there to this first scene. And I will say again, now this fits with the story. I just hurt a little bit watching it. And that was seeing the false dragon, Lorraine, being brought before the Amyrlin seat. And he had such great lines until the end. He had such great lines rebuking the Amyrlin seat and the other women because of what he was able to do. And then at the very end, as he's being dragged off, he's screaming, "Kill me, please kill me. Oh, please kill me." And it's like, that meant that everything Moraine said was true, that the madness is setting in and you weren't all that or whatever. And I'm like, here's a character that shows us how powerful men can be when they channel and what can be done with it. And now that he's been gentle in all this, now just the madness is setting in. It's supposed to take longer than that, but it's like it undermined all of his great comebacks. It undermined all of his chutzpah to say, I'm not really afraid of you. Yeah, I killed Kareen. What you gonna do about it? Is basically how he was all during that speech. And then it's like, oh God, please kill me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, so that's just me. It fit with the story. It just hurt me a little bit to watch it. What do you think about that, Steve? About how Logan?
Well, yeah, fitting the story, I think, is correct. Because you could arguably see that scene as, okay, he was trying to goad the Amyrlin seat into executing him. That would have made sense to me. And for a couple reasons, not just because, okay, I don't have to live, with being cut off from the one power and all of this. He could have died as a martyr. And that probably would have been something that would have, been good for the cause, and he could say, yeah, I'm just going to come back and as the dragon again, and that's no big deal. If he really believed he was the dragon, why would he fear death? He has no reason to. So yeah, that bit at the end, I'm not really sold on, unless it was an act. But I don't feel like anything Lorraine has done has really been an act. Everything up to this point has been Lorraine believes in everything he's saying. It may be a lot of nonsense fed to him by the Dark One or whatever, or it's just the madness of Sayadine, corrupting him or whatever. But he believes truly in his cause, and he believes in his goals. So what it should have been is, rather than basically wussing out at the end, which is what it comes across as,
Right.
he should have gone to his end defiant. It's like, I'm going to, my followers will prove me right, or I will come back in another life and I will prove you right. I was right all along. Something that shows the defiance that he had when he faced the Amarylline Seat, which was awesome, because a lot of the things he said were absolutely right. He was absolutely right on all of his criticisms of the Aes Sedhe. Absolutely right about everything that they're doing wrong. And his point of view is a necessary point of view. We need to see that point of view, but you don't go, at the very end and cut him off at the knees and, have him saying, "Oh, mommy, please kill me." It's just no. I didn't like that. You can justify it.
Mm-hmm.
It is something that you kind of have to do the work of the show a little bit in order to just try to justify. But I think it's not satisfying in the way that I would have liked to have seen it, especially given that Lorraine was one of the most likable characters in this whole thing up until this point. It's kind of a disappointment, but I guess they really wanted to show, the women are the best in the show, and you don't cross them without paying the price, blah, 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 blah. But no, I would rather have had the ambiguity of an antagonist who truly believes in his cause, who truly believes that what he's doing is just, and is willing to go down for what he believes in, no matter how crazy it might be. That would have been better than what we got.
I agree with all that. And I particularly like the martyr idea, because that would have had an impact for the people that did believe in him and the people that did follow him. And because people that have that kind of devotion would hold on no matter what, number one. Number two, if I was writing this show, at some point, he would become the only man that ever broke gently. And he would come back stronger than ever. If I wrote the show, I'm like, y'all think that's the end of him? But I'm like, no, somehow he found a way to get past the gentling and come back, maybe even in a Dark Phoenix kind of way. Maybe he had to, do some wrong things or whatever, but it wouldn't have been the end of that level of a power character that flew in the face of everything that they stood for, because that's the kind of antagonist that you need to make the show interesting, especially when he said, as you said, that I stood up against 3 of y'all, 9 of y'all, whatever, one of me, multiple numbers of y'all, and I still killed Kareem. How about that? So anyway, what do you think about that, Bracy? What do you think about the way they handled Lorraine and his exit?
One thing that I couldn't help but notice is the anger of the council, when he makes his impassioned speech. Obviously they're reminded of the loss of one of their sisters, and and they keep focusing on that one lady with the staff alive. She's kind of like the order bailiff or something. And like, she never speaks, but we keep focusing on her. So you better do something with that character, because you keep throwing her on the screen a lot. She's stamping with her staff, and she seems to be expressing the general anger. One thing I noticed about the Amarylline Seat, though, is she has this decorum about her. She has to be that step above. It reminds me very much of the British monarchy. You've got to be, and Nemesis knows, as a leader, you have to set yourself apart, whether you're a leader in a business or a leader in the military. If you were amongst the ranks, and you've got to be apart. And that's one thing I liked about what I was seeing with their character there. And I like this level of humanity that she showed. Is like, why are you bringing him in chains? He's been gentle. He's no threat.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, release him, let him come before me as a man. And later on she'll admonish Lalandra, you shouldn't have done that to him in the first place. He was supposed to come before me. But then, after he makes his pronouncement, she intentionally does something very cruel. She knows he's going to go insane. She knows this happens to every man who touches the one power, and she knows it's a terrible process for them. This is historical fact. And she is not going to let him be released. She is going to keep him alive as long as he can possibly stay alive as an example, not considering him his words. If she takes his words for anything, all right, you've had your say. Now this is what I'm going to do about it. So I found that juxtaposition. I don't know if this was her response to him bragging about killing one of the sisters, although she rightly guessed that he was trying to goad her into it. So I found that cruelty. I wonder if that's her being cruel or if that's expected cruelty from the Order. Because we see that she does do expected things in the public chamber that she won't do in private. So I found that an interesting point of view. As for Lorraine himself, excuse me a sec, I was not surprised by his outburst at the end. Since he's been gentled up until this very moment, what have we seen? We've seen him slumped, beaten, defeated. He's riding along in chains again. On the trip over, he's in chains. Why is he in chains? He's powerless, and you've got like 9 Aes Sedai with you. He's nothing to you. And if you could send any one warder to take him out, there's no reason to chain him to a horse. No reason at all. So this is, again, it's like we talked about last time, the public humiliation. It's all part of that. And since Lalandra is in charge after Karini got killed, so I'm sure that's her order on top of things. So I'm not surprised to hear him beg and plead at the end. I really did take it that was him trying to goad her into killing him, ending his misery, because we know that once you're removed from the one power, you just don't live, at least as far as the men go. And I think in his case, I'm still not convinced that he was being touched by the madness or if he was talking to something other than the one power. But without the power, I don't think he has the ability to forestall the madness. He's lost that, and he knows it, and he's very aware of it. And for somebody who thought he was the dragon, and to suddenly find out you're not, and you were immediately whooped by somebody who is apparently greater, this novice channeler, who just whooped you and everybody in the room all by herself. I can see that having broken his spirit, but I'm like you guys. I wish that Lorraine had stood up a bit more. I did kind of like his bluster, and his bluster was not false. Everything he said was true. He's speaking truth through power. He's pointing out the flaws in the system and things that should be recognized by the ruling class, but oftentimes are not. And there was a chance there for some sort of meeting of the minds, and maybe she'll prove me wrong. Maybe she wants to keep him alive to discuss things with him. But like I said, I felt like her final solution was very cruel, considering the fate that's coming upon him. And I do wish that Lorraine had come into the city riding tall in the saddle, standing defiantly in his cage. And once they unbound him, I wish he wouldn't have just made his pronouncement. I wish he would have stood up as a man and looked her in the eye and made that pronouncement and not crumbled at the end. I wanted more for the character than that.
The only thing I specifically disagree with is the idea of him being whooped by Nynaeve. When you get whooped by a Mary Sue character, it doesn't count to me. Okay? So, if you're a Jedi or a Sith, or if you have force power, you have to be trained. All they ever talked about was training. Even when Vader was trying to seduce Luke, he said, "Come with me and I'll complete your training." All they ever talked about was training. All Yoda ever talked about was training. And then here come Rey with no training, doing the Jedi mind trick, resisting, that kind of stuff, being able to handle a character who has like a beginner's luck kind of fluke. Oh, by the way, I can do this and I'm Dark Phoenix kind of, that That's not even a real
No,
fight.
no, like from writing that makes perfect sense. But I'm having to go within the context of the show, and like when she sees him go supernova, and he even goes like a candle before the sun, like that realization, even if it's not earned at all, that had to be playing on his mind the whole trip to the tower.
Okay, what do you think, Nemesis, about how they handle Lorraine?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, but I looked at this whole scene maybe from a different point of view. I appreciated what the scene brought out, though I'm not sure that the writers and showrunners wanted to bring out what they did in my mind. This whole scene, and there are two parts to it that I'm going to talk about, really underscored A, the political nature of the Aes Sedai, B, the fact that they have no claim to authority other than power, and C, their authoritarianism. And the first two have everything to do with the Lorraine bit. So he's brought before them, and he is a political prisoner. They are going to keep him alive to trot him out when they need to either tell the people, look, this is what happens if you get out of line, or to show their own members if they start to doubt what they're doing or doubt their mission or whatever. Look at how glorious and wonderful we are, and look what we can do to these people. And what they did to this man, A, in gentling him, was just cruel, and B, in keeping him alive so that he could be put on display or be held to be put on display as a symbol of their power is compounds their cruelness. They are cruel, and they're doing it to show that they have power, and they do it to show power so that they can stay in control. The third part has to do with what comes afterwards when they question Moraine, and they go through that whole, what we come to find out, political charade. So once again, we see that there are no real standards here. There are no real guiding principles. There are no morals here. There is no path that we are walking in order to lead humanity. This is a charade to keep power, to hide I'm going to tread dangerously close to real events, the sins and failings of the elite, and in order to trick not only the populace, but those who are supposed to be their sisters into going a certain direction. It is politics, court intrigue, and subterfuge in the worst possible way. Well, not the worst possible way, but a bad way.
Okay, all right. That's a segue into it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about Moraine and Lalandra. Then we're going to talk about Moraine and her Dragon Reborn candidates. And then we're going to talk about Moraine and the Emerald Sea. So first, let's start with Moraine and Lalandra. Everything about the Lalandran character is someone that you kind of love to hate, and she's so full of hatred herself. But in this particular thing, all of a sudden she felt like, to me, like maybe the jealous best friend, or maybe the jealous big sister, or maybe, why does she get to go traipsing around the countryside and don't nobody, and we ain't seen her in 2 years? What's she been doing? That kind of thing. It felt really kind of juvenile to me, but especially the way Moraine initially backed up Lalandran's claim that we had to Gentleman because you didn't see what he did to Karine. Moraine corroborated that, but then Lalandran did not return the favor and called her out in front of everybody, in front of the Emerald Sea, just basically put her on blast, basically saying, clearly, this one is the favorite child because she just gets to do whatever she wants. And that feels so junior high school to me. Why you just let her do whatever she wants. I'm like, I'm like 9, 13. But that kind of whole dynamic was like, so it just made me feel like even more so. See, when you do stuff like that, my response is, because I'm a grown man, my response is, why would anybody trust you after that?
And then the private clapback by Moraine.
Oh, yeah. Now I'm gonna get to that in a minute. So when you put your sister on blast like that, if you were really interested in her finding out what she's doing, or maybe giving her the benefit of the doubt, or just saving face, or presenting any type of united front, or anything professional, you would have asked for a private audience with the Emerald Sea to Moraine and done something like that there. But that ain't what you did. You did that in front of everybody to force a rebuke, to force a chastisement, to force the Ammerlin to have to respond to Moraine's maybe vagabond, maybe wandering ways, maybe her severe lack of accountability, which is now front and center. It can no longer be denied. And then Moraine goes, "I'm sorry, but I cannot say." I did not understand that line. Okay, someone in authority over you, the person in authority over you, and your response is, "Well, I can't tell you. I'm sorry, I got to keep that on the low." I was like, So we found out a little bit later the dynamic there. But that would have set my spider sense off if I was one of them other women in the chamber talking about she can't say, and you're just gonna let that go. Some ain't right in Smallville. And then on the private tip with Moraine and Lalandra, once again, it was so. One review I read said that it made them human, and I get that, but it's what Nemesis just said. You've been espousing a higher order, a higher level, a weight of responsibility that you make it clear you don't think men can handle, but you think you can. So you've been espousing that from the beginning of the show, and then your comeback is, "I'm gonna tell everybody about your secret man if you don't shut up." I felt like I was watching an episode of Martin. Like, is this Martin? And Shaquita and him and Tommy and all that, and Shanae, and I was like, that's what it felt like to me. Like, if you don't get off me, if you don't step off, and then and then so it's like Lalandra, it's like, I hate men, but I sure want one. I was like, please shut up. Just stop talking. If I was anywhere in that mix, and you're this adamant man hater, but you still hooking up with one, on what basis can you justify that relationship other than you just talking out two sides of your mouth? This means you have no honor. So that's 2 strikes. Well, it's probably the 3rd strike with Lalandra, because we see her in the opening episode gentling those guys she's chasing down. But I'm like, to me, I'm like, you put your sister on blast like you're in junior high school, and then you got a boyfriend. You see how it sounds to me just saying that? Like we're in 7th grade and we're bored in history class and we're talking about, who's dating. It just took it down to, I was like, come on, man.
And you think that if anyone was going to give us our Daughters of Sappho's moment later on, it would be her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
That's another really good point. That would have been more consistent with the facade that she's been presenting. But it's just like, everything about you is juvenile. Everything about you is immature. Everything about you actually, in my mind, goes to proving how you are not worthy of the one power. You don't have any business passing your judgment on other people, because you're justifying your actions by your emotions, and you're taking no accountability for those actions, and you're living this double life. So you can plug in any type of situation that you want, but if you're living this double life that's incongruent with what you're saying, I don't know. So that's just me. So you guys want to hear your comments on what we're talking about now is Moraine and Lalandra, that scene in the beginning where she puts her on blast, and the scene in private where she has that clap back. Go ahead, Nemesis, because you gave me some claps on that one. So
yeah, well, I was doing clap back there. That's what I was expecting at some point, where she was going to do this, or we get the head back and forth or something. It's like I was waiting for any of that.
You're looking for the turkey neck or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was waiting for Maury Povich to come out, or something like that. So,
or Jerry Springer.
Jerry.
You are not the father. So, yeah, I talk about hypocritical. I just was not expecting that. I was expecting that she was, if she had any interaction with men, and you were going to uncover a secret, she's like, being a dominatrix and going too far down in the city, or she's beating men, or something like, she's just doing something like that. But then to find out that she's, secretly wants a relationship, and then I'm sorry for my comments at the beginning, but immediately it just brought to mind a certain kind of man that she's dating and what's going on there. I just, my mind went there immediately. And it was not happy with where it went. It was not a pleasant trip. So, you know, but, and I'll be honest with you, I've not nothing against this actress. I don't know if it's the makeup or whatever, but they have done something to make her just look severe. Her chin looks like it's going to.
He has a Botox look.
Yeah, her chin and her jawline look like it's going to rip right out of the screen and beat the hell out of me. You know, so
yeah, and look at how they do her cheeks. You know, they've got her cheekbones so highlighted they look like they're poking out like razor blades.
Yeah.
Well, it's an old school caricature of a witch character. If she was an old school, old timey witch character, it's that look.
Yeah, and I, from the very first episode or the first time we saw her, I was wondering what was going on and went and looked at her publicity shots, and she doesn't look like that, you know. So because I was concerned, I was literally like, someone needs to help this lady, you know. So yeah, enough jokes. Yeah, it's just, there's not much to say. I think DT hit all the points. It's just, it really did feel juvenile. It felt like junior high. I felt like, you know, someone was going to come in grabbing somebody's hair, you know, and they're going to have a girl fight in the middle of the White Tower right there. And some vice principal guard was going to come in and get the shit kicked out, get the head kicked out of him by the two women. You know, it's just what it felt like. I've lived this before. I've seen girl fights in high school. And, you know, the best thing I could say is that they got Logain out of there, because men around girl fights, it never turns out well. So.
What do you think, Bracy? What do you think about Moraine and Lalandra?
You know, the one thing I did like about this is when the ambulance seat's dressing her down in particular, because she's rightly putting the responsibility for the situation on her, because she became in charge once Carini was gone. And she expresses to her that, you know, do you understand? Like, and she takes her all the way back to school. She says, like, don't you remember your training? And these rules are here. And this was an interesting thing. These rules are here to protect the people from us. I was like, wow. And I thought that was really profound. And then they tear all that down with the things that happen next, because we've already found out that their whole system of authority and government is a house of cards built on the fact that the way they wield power. So this wonderful idea, which feels very Arthurian in principle, very American in a lot of ways. You know, it's all about for the people. We have this enormous power, so we must protect the people. When you think of the Arthurian legend, it was not might makes right, but it was using might for right to bolster what is right. And for a moment, I thought, like, okay, you know, the ambulance seat appears to be very noble. We have this noble idea, and then it gets shot down right away, because as Lalandra takes her punishment, apparently with grace, and then she turns around, and I flash back some 40-something years back to being a teenager, watching my brother get in trouble, knowing he was going to get it, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he turns around and rats me out in front of my folks. And I was like, you little son of a... And it's like you said, it's so childish. It's so high school. It's so petty. I'm in trouble, but I can get you in more trouble. You know, and you're supposed to be a woman who's got, like, all this power and authority. You're the leader of, like, your own band of Reds and all this. And, man. And then later on when we see them, there's even that whole thing where, like, she's playing the mean girl in school when they leave the chambers, like, oh, what? Did you think I was supposed to do that because of what you said there? It's like, well, yeah, I backed your play. You know, I tried to help you out, you know. We both tried to help you out, and you turn on me like a rabid dog. So, like I said, this particular episode just breaks everything about the system they've established. You like her even less, and you already don't like this woman at all. And then it's like you said, when we get into the private moments, first of all, finding out that Moraine and the ambulance seat have their own special relationship breaks any idea of everything we've been told about how warders and Aes Sedai are supposed to work. What happened to this bond that is closer than you will ever feel with anyone else? If you're going to feel a bond closer than you feel with a spouse or with a child, with your own flesh and blood child. And I don't have any children myself, unfortunately, but everybody I know who has children, they say, like, I used to think I really loved my wife. I couldn't live with anybody more than I loved my wife until I had a child. And we would both throw our lives away to save that child. That's just how nature is. So if you've got a bond that goes beyond this, but like, hey, Lan, why don't you stand guard over there while I go get my booty call going? They're like, what? What happened? What happened to my home? Is the saddle, the cloak I wear, the boots on my feet, and the brooding man by my side? Apparently not.
We're gonna get to that in a minute. Stick with Moraine and Lalandra right now. We're gonna get back to that in a minute.
Yeah, so like I said, this whole thing just breaks all the conventions, all the lore, everything that they've been setting up for how the Aes Sedai work, how the wars in the Aes Sedai work, and so this episode was particularly disappointing for me because of that. And as you've rightly pointed out, DT, their whole system of government doesn't work. It's a pack of lies, and as Dave put out, Nemesis, it's all based on the fact that they have the power. They've got the nukes. That's why they're on top. They got the nukes. Nobody else has got the nukes. It's ruled by force. It's not Arthurian at all, and it's incredibly disappointing.
No dukes, no dukes.
So what do you think, Steve? Moraine and Lalandra?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine liking Leandrin any less, but this episode managed it quite well. I wasn't surprised at the revelation that she had a dude on the side, but they seem to be implying pretty strongly that it's not just a dude; it's a dude who could channel. Because she was saying not just who he is, but what he is.
Yeah.
Oh, really? What would get her in trouble? Maybe covering up the fact that she's got a guy on the side who can channel, and she is turning the other way instead of gentling him like she does with everybody else. And I'm just laughing at this.
She's doing something else to him?
Yeah. So so it's like, okay, so on top of her being just generally a bitch and just generally backstabbing and conniving and all of these things, she is also a religious hypocrite. And am I surprised that she is that? Nope, not at all. No, that sounds about right. Between that and the mean girl stuff, I'm just thinking this woman is a complete narcissist. She is absolutely in it for herself. She only cares about power and who she can roll over in order to get more power. She has no regard for anybody else. I mean, we know that she has no loyalty to anybody. I mean, she just proved that here. I mean, she only submits to the Amyrlin seat because she's in a higher position, and can still her. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And even Moraine, resorting to blackmail to shut her up. I mean, and showing how manipulative Moraine can be by the way that she had to do that. Lorraine still looks good compared to Leandrin because Leandrin is so bad. I mean, just horrible. And that whole thing, with the Amyrlin seed, ratting out Moraine. And I have to say that this kind of bothered me a little bit because it's like, okay, so what exactly are the rules on Aes Sedai and traveling? Do you have to submit a written report? Do you have to go to the head of your Aja or to the Merlin seat and ask for permission to leave? How exactly does this work? Where she's been riding around for 20 years and nobody seems to have a problem with this. Of course, the real reason that nobody has a problem with this is because Moraine is acting under orders of the Amyrlin seat and nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
So they're hiding this. But I mean, the thing is that this is not clear. It is presented basically in a way saying, okay, this is a bad thing. You should have some accountability to people, but how is this done? I mean, what are those rules that she's breaking, and how is it that she has to be called out in front of everybody and consider that this is a bad thing? Why couldn't have this been handled in private? Why is this anybody's business but her and maybe the head of her Aja and maybe the Amyrlin seat? I don't see where that makes any sense to me. It's just ridiculous, but it's all designed to set up the situation at the end of the episode, which is that Moraine has to go into exile to fulfill her mission, blah, blah, blah. And this is just a convenient blocking point, mixed in with the politics of the Aes Sedai. But I will say this, it goes back, once again, all of this comes back to what Moraine said in the previous episode. Every woman is out for herself. This is not like the Happy Sisterhood where, they're getting along and fighting against the menfolk because they're dangerous. No. It is they are all plotting for their own agenda and everybody else be damned, including the people in their own order. And that's pretty much the tall and the short of it. And Liandrin is the worst of the lot. And that is saying something.
Now, let me preface what I'm about to say with this, and that is that nobody's above making a mistake. You sometimes are surprised in life by what you desire or what you would do or what you wouldn't do. So I'm not making this statement as someone that is not very much in touch with my own humanity, because I'm just clan breath like anybody else. Having said that, this situation reminds me of Strom Thurmond. If you're not familiar with Strom Thurmond, look him up. But for a huge part of his life, he was a staunch segregationist. He was a very strong blacks and whites don't mix, and a very strong. Now, he wasn't that way his whole life, but for a large part of his career, he was almost the face of the segregation movement in terms of Congress and getting laws passed and why blacks and whites shouldn't mix. He lived to be a little over 100. The week that man died, his daughter, who is mixed, who came from a black woman, stood up and said, I want y'all to know Strom Thurmond is my father. I kept it quiet while he was alive because I don't want to mess his career up. So while you were saying that blacks and whites don't mix and that's just abomination before God, you was hooking up with a sister.
He did all the mixing he could.
Know that about that.
Yeah.
I knew all the other
stuff.
Yeah,
he's from my state.
yeah. She stood up the week he died in public and like, I just want y'all to know. I'm a mixed child, and Strom Thurmond is my father, and my mother's a black woman. And so it just kind of retroactively, throws everything you say into suspicion or whatever. And, like I said, folks are folks. I'm not judging anybody. I'm saying this reminds me of that as there's something called, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but you probably are. There's something called reaction formation. You know what I'm talking about? Reaction formation is when you are afraid, embarrassed, and otherwise put off by your attraction to something. So you create a false self that's the opposite of how you really feel. That's reaction formation. So in other words, I'm going to campaign against pornography because I'm secretly addicted to pornography. Or I'm going to campaign against LGBTQ because I'm getting myself something like that. So many times what you're seeing is reaction formation. When people are saying, I'm afraid of the feelings that I have, or I'm ashamed of the things that are going on in my life. So I'm going to create this character, this persona, this front that makes it look like I'm against what I'm in love with and what I'm obsessed with. And this is all what was coming to my mind as I'm watching Lalandra, because I'm like, so like Steve was saying, not only are you with a dude, with a duty dude, but you're with a channeling duty dude. So all the stuff that you're purported to stand against, you hooking up with on the low. And I'm like, so anyway, like I said, everybody's human. Nobody's above that kind of thing. But when you're already insufferable as a character and you've already built your whole platform on hating men and gentling men, and you didn't see what he did to her and you're all snotty with it. So anyway, so let's move from that to Moraine and her 4 protege, Dragon Reborn kind of people, which I guess we have to count Nynaeve as 5, I guess, maybe, I don't know. But what I will say about this is that this reunion felt underwhelming to me. It felt like there should have been more emotions, more of a connection or a sense of relief and them getting in the same space, but it fell kind of flat to me. But I will say my favorite scene in this whole episode was when Moraine is pulling the darkness out of Matt and literally channeling it through herself and then putting it back in the knife. That's like Aladdin getting the lamp and telling Jafar he's got all the powers of the genie and the limitations too. I thought that was a boss move. it's the kind of thing I would have expected the Amerlin seat to do. But since Moraine did it, we see what kind of level she's on. But the CGI, the special effects about how that darkness was literally trying to come in her mouth. And she had a vomit pool of black blood and darkness and evil just all right here trying to get in. And she was able to resist it, channel it back into the knife. And in this instance, calling Matt a foolish boy, I agreed with. It didn't feel like it was just scorn or chastisement. It felt like, once again, you're that character in the movie that went somewhere and picked up the cursed object. Idiot, have you never seen a horror movie? But anyway, so I thought that was a boss move. I thought that she demonstrated kind of more what she's made of and how willing she was to keep Matt from being gentled. Had that been Lalandra or almost anybody else, and they see he's already in the madness, they would have taken him down. And Rand acknowledges that, but Moraine says, well, no, I actually kind of care about you, and you might be the Dragon Reborn, and you've done a foolish thing, but I'm going to take that pain myself and put it back where it belongs. I thought that was my favorite scene in the whole episode. And it made me have more respect for Moraine's power levels, even though I know she's double dealing and everything, but just her power levels and what she can actually do. Because if you think about it, besides that fight in the forest, we've only ever seen her do really cool one power things. I mean, Naive's burst or whatever, My favorite character is still Alana, because Alana comes across to me like she's a grown-up. She comes across to me the most like she's an adult woman in this mix. But seeing Moraine doing something like that and having, Rand acknowledge what was going on, I thought that was really good just for the camaraderie and all that. But them finally being together after several episodes and all they've been through, I know Egwene was excited to see Nynaeve and everything, but I don't know. It just felt flat to me emotionally. It felt like it should have been more of a release for the gang to be back together again. So you guys tell me what you think about what I just said. Start with Steve.
Okay, I felt like Moraine both had really good scenes and kind of like moments where you're stopping and saying, okay, what is she really doing? And I'll kind of go into those first, because you've already talked pretty well about the situation with Matt, which I agree was really, really well handled. That is her being in Gandalf mode again. That is her being, doing the fool of a took thing. And when she gets to do that with Matt, I just think it's perfect, because Matt absolutely is the Pippin of this group. So I'm like, yeah, that dynamic is good. You have the wise, the wise mentor and this foolish person who's constantly getting into trouble, and they kind of develop, kind of a friendship between them in an odd couple way, which is what I'm kind of hoping with her and Matt. So that was kind of fun. On the other hand, oh yeah, and of course her telling Nynaeve, if you want to be a wisdom, you better start showing some, which I just thought was just one of her best scene, the whole thing. Just partly because we don't like Nynaeve, and partly because it shows, Moraine is in charge. It's her establishing, her dominance in the group and doing what she should. She's doing what the Merlin seat should have been doing. Yes. So I really appreciated that. But on the other hand, it's clear that she is lying to both groups about the other not being in town. Yeah, because she say, I haven't heard from them, or just her usual Aes Sedhe way of saying, I have lookouts out there for them, but I have it on good authority that they're alive, but I haven't seen them. Yeah. So yeah, all this lying while telling the literal truth once again to both of them, so that they don't go and interact with each other. And I think the reason why this should have been explained why she did this. There should have been a moment with Lan and Moraine explaining why she did this. But what I think she did was to try to make sure that Leandrin didn't catch them together by having them look for each other. Okay, so in a way, she's doing something clever to protect them, is what I think she probably was doing. But I mean, the problem is we don't get a line where she actually says what she's up to, and I think that was necessary. I think we needed to know what her thought process was, because we as the viewers know she's lying, because we're seeing these scenes where she's interacting with both groups and telling them both different things, and we know that that's not the case. So you have to explain, okay, what is your agenda? What are you really up to? There was none of that. So that is a demerit. But everything else, the way that she interacted with the younger characters, the way that she reasserted herself immediately as the mentor, the way she's saying, yeah, this is how you survive in Tar Valon. This is, I'm going to solve this problem for you. I really do care about you in my own way. And I think she probably does. She sees them as her charges. She is responsible for them. She is, so there is a certain element that even though she might be ruthless, even though she might be, manipulative and out for her own agenda, I think it's nice to see that there is a human connection that she's actually forming to a certain extent with each of the people that she's adopted. And I kind of like that, the idea that she's almost playing mom to them. I would like to see more of that, because that kind of makes Moraine less of the, severe Aes Sedhe, and gives her more of a human relationship with all of these other characters, and it allows the cast to grow as a whole, which I think is really good. It's just that always with Moraine, you have to watch what the left hand is doing, the right hand is doing, as well as what she's doing with the left hand, and you're not really seeing it. So we saw both aspects of that, and I think it shows in a way Moraine as a complete character, even if we don't like everything that she does. So I thought that Moraine came out, I think it had probably more better than pretty much everybody, except maybe to a certain extent Rand, who I have to give credit for, like, standing up to Moraine, thinking, okay, is he actually hurting Matt? Is she trying to gentle him? Because, he's heard all these things from Tom Merrill and the Gleeman, about gentling, and he's not sure that Matt is the dragon. So, you understand his doubts here. Is she come to gentle Matt? Is she come to take him to the White Tower, in chains like she did with Loghain? Or is it a situation where she's, doing something to help him? And as we turned out, it's the latter. And because of that, I think that, we start to see doubts sort of form as well. We start to see Rand slowly lower his guard and kind of drop the pride a little bit. And we start to see a bond between her and Rand as well to a certain extent. And that's going to come into play a lot more in the next couple of episodes. So it's nice to see these kind of moments. And I wish we had more of this in this episode. And this is why I was criticizing a little bit, the addition of the prologue, which we did not need, because if we had had more time, we would have had more time for her to spend with these characters. We'd have more time for each of the characters to spend with each other, instead of, all this nonsense, going on with Moraine and the Aes Sedhe and all of this stuff going on the political scale. We could have had that, and we could have had that instead of a wasted scene that it gives us absolutely nothing in the beginning. So, hats off. I think in terms of Moraine as a character, it's very illustrative.
Real quick, and then I'm gonna throw it to Bracy, just to address some of what you said, just really quickly. Number one, I couldn't possibly agree more about the scene with Nynaeve, because what she did was she flipped what Nynaeve was saying. She did an expert parry move, because Nynaeve was questioning her again, and Moraine flipped it and said, "Why didn't you call me the first time you saw the signs of mass madness?" She flipped it. I was like, wow, that's excellent speaking right there. And like, you call yourself the wisdom, you better start using some. I was like, wow. Okay, so I like that, number one. Number two, this whole thing about the lying brings to mind two of my favorite characters, Superman and Spock. So Superman Reed was talking to Lois Kidder during their famous interview, Lois, I Never Lie, except the part where I'm pretending when I'm Clark. Yeah, okay, Superman, we'll let you have that one. Okay, but Spock's like, I can't lie, I cannot tell a lie. Vulcans don't lie. So we came up with creative ways. And in Star Trek 6, Valeris was like, is that a lie? He's like, it's an error. Yeah, okay.
I exaggerated.
Right, yeah, I exaggerated. So I'm like, so we're gonna have to throw out the whole Aes Sedhe thing now. And they're not even pretending to try to be clever like Spock is and come up with a way around what they do. You just lying. Okay, that's all that is. So, you don't have to have a PhD in psychology. You just lying. So that's another thing, even though it's kind of funny to watch, it undermines, there's nothing about the show we can like plant a flag in and say this one thing for sure, except that Nynaeve is annoying. Other than that, everything else seems to change from episode to episode. Go ahead, Bracy. What do you think about Moraine and reuniting with her Dragon Reborn protege group?
Well, you see, my young friend, what Moraine said was the truth from a certain point of view.
Oh my goodness! Do y'all see how this
You
man
went
is
there.
channeling Obi-Wan? Do you see this?
Yeah, she commits lies of omission, is what they're called when you leave out facts. She does it again at the very end of the episode when the group asks about what happens if we all go to meet the dragon or meet the dark when we're not all the dragon. What happens? Like, well, we can't really know until we get there and see. But she knows. She knows. Like it's been reported time and time again. Anybody gets between the dragon and the dark one will be utterly destroyed. So she's very careful in everything she says, and like as you rightly point out, she's very clever in her words, and this is why even like in the previous scene, Lalandra calls her out on that. It's like, I know you, I know how you twist words because you're blue sect, and they're all about the secrets. They're like a whole bunch of Benny Gesserit running around. They're behind the scenes. They're baking and shaking, that sort of thing. So and this is a case where, like, later on in the end scene, Nynaeve is actually right for a change to call her out when they go to the gateway of the ways, which is like, all right, we told her what you said. We with the animal and see, we're not going anywhere until you tell us what's going on. That was one time I really agreed with her, and I could tell Nynaeve, like, she's still not playing straight with her, still not playing straight with us, because everything that comes out of her mouth is structured. As Leandra said, it's like everything you say is for your benefit in some way. So what she does makes sense, keeping them separate, because we've already been told how dangerous it can be to be at the White Tower, how manipulative it can be. So the smart play was to keep all the characters apart. But like Steve said, we needed that little line, that little aside, that little something to give the audience that reason why. Because if you're in passing, if you don't think about it too carefully, like, why is she doing this? We need that reason. So give us a little bit more. Not necessarily like an exposition dive, but like one sentence, one line could have fixed all of that right there, and it still maintains Moraine's character. And she did have good moments. Again, I like the scene very much with her and Matt. Several great things came out of it, as you guys have mentioned. Rand stands up for his friend. He's apparently always going to be that guy, no matter how bad things are getting. Even though he's hopelessly overpowered, and that's proven instantly. But he's still wise enough to realize, like, oh, okay, you did help him, and what you did was good, and they start to form the bond, a needed bond. Whereas, like, when Nynaeve comes in, the first thing she's like, "Oh, God, you're here," kind of deal. And Moraine rightly told her, like, he could have died because of your arrogance, because you want to keep the Aes Sedai shut out. You don't trust any of us at all, and that would have been on you. And and she said it before. Like, I was thinking, like, she's going to get her on the wisdom, and sure enough, if you're going to call yourself wisdom, use it. And Nynaeve, to her credit, looked properly chastised by that. But that doesn't last. That doesn't last, unfortunately. I like Matt in this scene a lot as well. Matt is on his deathbed. He figures this is it. We're going out. He's already had the fatalistic point of view from last episode. If I turn, kill me. I already think I might have killed a little girl in another farm. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do that to my beloved sisters. Kill me. And so when Moraine comes in and he thinks he's about to be gentled and or killed, and Rand pulls the sword and he's like, oh, poor Rand, he's so misguided. He's basically like, forgive him, do what you got to do. Matt's ready to die. He's ready. He's been ready for a while. And when Moraine pulls this thing out of him, I've got to give credit to the FX team who works on this, because when we see the one power being used, it it moves like a living thing, which is kind of cool. It doesn't move like just wisps of smoke all the time. Sometimes it moves like they're animating a living creature. And when I saw the blackness being pulled out of Matt, it moved in a way that reminded me very much of a serpent. The way it kind of coiled and pulled and shifted as muscles are going along this long spinal column. And I thought that was a really neat detail. And like you said, DT, I like the fact that it tried to get in her, and the whole time she's just like tightly keeping her mouth shut, and it's just pooling on her face to stay, to keep it out until she can channel it back into the dagger. Now, one thing I did think was strange about this, and me and my wife kept talking about this as we watched the later episodes. She's saying like, if he ever touches that dagger again, I don't know, because he was feeding off it. It was feeding off him. It's like,
yes.
Well, how would he ever get a hold of the dagger again? Land's got the dagger, right? He's never going to touch the dagger again. You guys are going to go drop it down the deepest hole you can find or something. Like, Land doesn't even want to physically touch it. He wraps it up. So I kept wondering, this felt like a plot line.
Wouldn't the White Tower have a vault for that stuff?
You would think so, right? So it just felt like that felt like a plot line that got kind of dropped. And we still questioned it until the end of the show, because we still don't know what became of the dagger. And you'll see Matt makes certain choices along the way, not the least of which is when they all get out to leave, he opts not to go. And I have problems with this, because this shows Moraine's arrogance. Moraine has figured that the dragon is either unlikely Nynaeve, because she's too old, or it is Egwene. She took the two of them to see the Amelin Sea, nobody else. And so she's like, it's one of these two. It's definitely one of these two. It's like, hey, like even Land will tell like, what if it was Matt? It's like, oh, it couldn't possibly be Matt. And if it is Matt, it's better he doesn't go there. Well, then I guess the darkness gets out, and then you've got two potential enemies. Like, no, you needed him there. You needed all of them there, no matter what you think. Until you need all of them with you. It's not a good idea to have any of them running around. So she breaks her own principles there, in my mind. Like you guys, I think we could have done without the first scene to build onto these other scenes, because, like you said, DT, the reunion was empty. It should have been a lot more. These guys haven't seen each other in a month, and I know Nynaeve got to see a couple of them already, but she didn't, and she didn't get to see the others, and Egwene's like, oh, I actually love him. Okay, yeah, still not buying your chemistry and all that, but at least you did run over and throw your arms around this sort of thing. But I didn't really feel the impact, because we didn't get to see it, and we didn't have enough time with it. It's like a couple of guys who, like, oh, we haven't seen each other in, maybe a week or two, and nothing terribly stressful has been going on. We're not glad to find out you're alive. Nothing like that. It didn't come across like that. It felt all too expected. Like they had the same expectation as the audience. Just on the voice of what Moraine said, and like even if she said like I've got authority that they're fine, it wouldn't go down like that. Considering all the hardships each of these pairings of the group have gone through, it should have been a lot more intense, a lot more meaningful, and so that was a missed opportunity, because we showed a scene which really wasn't that important to the story.
Well, we as the audience know more than the characters do in story, but they still shouldn't trust her.
Yeah.
Okay? They should not trust her. But anyway, Nims, what do you think, Moraine and her Dragon Reborn group?
Yeah, I think you guys hit on a lot of the big points. I'll be honest with you. Until you just brought it up, I forgot that they reunited. That's how important it was.
That's how forgettable it was.
And even going even further, I think they could have just put a cardboard cutout of Perrin in this whole episode and accomplished the same, because he had like a line, 2 lines in the whole episode.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that did stand out for me was the dagger. Mm-hmm. And I'll go a little bit different direction. I liked what they did, but I think that they missed an opportunity. I think they could have gone even further. because it just raises a whole lot of questions. You know, you guys know me. I mean, I've got a secret place of darkness in my heart. I have a place in my heart for demon stories and possession and ghosts and all that stuff. So here you have a guy who's possessed, and you're drawing this evil creature or evil thing out of him and putting it back in the dagger. Play with it. Have voices in Moraine's head tempting her as she's pulling it out. You know, you don't have to necessarily extend the scene, but show something. Show Matt struggling. You know, like give us an overview of like it holding on to his soul. You know, or something. You know, that would have been really cool. Even better is if you cut some of the other scenes down, like when Steve mentioned before, the wasted time with the Amerlin seats, you know, background, and show more of what's going on. Like, how does this tie in to the overall story? Is this the dark one, or is this a different dark power? How does this dagger fit into everything? Can the dark one inhabit these items, or is it just something, you know, just so many places you could have gone with it. And I wish they had. Doesn't take away from what they did, but you know, you know, it really shows that out of everything that this group went through, this is the thing that stood out for me, which shows, you know, I didn't even remember that they were united. And it's like, okay, if you're going to do that, give us more, because that really interested me. And I say that with the caveat that I'm a sicko who likes dark things. So,
okay,
Yeah, there's
one
brief thing I'd like to add to that.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so you know the reason we do these things not as a movie but as a series is because with a series you get a time to try and do the book more justice. But what I find a little bit disappointing with the series overall is these things which should have been added in are being that time is being taken away with extraneous scenes that we don't need, when they should be delving into the workings of the world, the motivations of the people, and the relationships of the character at times is being lost because they're wanting to put, as you like to say, DT, the camera in the wrong place.
It's editing, production, direction, and story choices.
Yeah, but the script has to be there.
Well, that's what I meant by That's what I meant by editing, like editor for a novel, where you go back to them and say, "Look, I think we need to add more here," or something. So.
And as a director, you got to understand the flow of the episode that you're directing, and like you said, editing, cutting it, because you can't have everything on the screen that you want. So you've got to make choices. Very, 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 very true. Okay, so we're going to talk about two things to close out. We're going to talk about Moraine's secret relationship, and then we're going to talk about what happens at the end when they're on the way to the eye of the world. I'll actually put both of those together, so when I throw it to y'all, you can talk about both. First, we're going to talk about Moraine's secret relationship. Like I said from the jump, like we've been saying all episode long, it just seems to undercut everything. You know, I really liked, I don't know if that was Nims or Jeff that brought out the idea. I think it was Jeff, about how we have this unbreakable bond, or maybe that was Nims, this unbreakable bond, and it's stronger than, you know, husband and wife, stronger than spousal bond, siblings, children. And then he basically says, well, you know, I won't be able to feel you, and you're going to go into this other dimension and this other space, and whatever's going on there, I don't know. And I'm like, well, how's that possible? Based on what we've seen in the story world. And then it's like, again, everything being based on a hookup, to me, what screamed the loudest is that y'all don't believe none of what you preach. You don't believe none of what you say. You don't trust the women that you've assembled, that you're training or have mastery in the use of the one power. You don't trust them with what you're really, really doing. And actually reminded me very much of Star Trek Picard, when the Romulan women were the only ones. Remember when they stood and grabbed the ring and they saw the end of the world, they saw the monster, and it drove 90% of them crazy. And only one of them could actually handle the vision. But it was like, that's basically what they're saying, is that we've had a vision of the end of the world, but we're the only two that can really handle it. And we don't really trust our sisterin to be in on what we're doing. Plus they can't know we're working together because we're hooking up. So I'm like, let me get this straight. You're going to put the fate of the world in jeopardy because you don't want everyone else who has power that can help you to know about your secret relationship. Okay. So we got to keep what we're doing on the low, and then we have to set up the exile thing so I can go off and do what I'm going to do. And then while we're holding, the staff. There's a little finger touch that you can see with the camera, and we're both crying because we know this is the end of us, you and me, for a while and all that. And I was like, this does not endear either one of you to me. This, once again, lets me know you don't believe none of what you say. You don't trust anybody but yourselves. So now you've basically said that a man broke the world and women have to fix it, but you really mean the two of you because you don't really trust the other women in the town. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. This is going to blow up in your face. As a writer, I know that, but also as someone very familiar with, our good friend Karma, this is going to blow up right in your face because you've been stringing these women along on something that you don't believe is not going to play out like you think it will. Okay. Which leads me to the last thing, which is the scene at the Eye of the World. And I told y'all about Matt. I told y'all, I don't care how much that boy loves his sisters. When the grits hit the pan, he was like, yeah, no, I don't think so. Yeah, no, I'm going to make my own decision. Yeah, no, I'm going to, break the unity of what we got going on. And I was like, I told y'all that boy was about himself, because what that was just so selfish to come all that way. And then, because if it turns out if you are the dragon, that means you're going to manifest again, and we aren't around to deal with it. So you might have just put, just in the story, you might have just put the whole world in jeopardy because of that one selfish act, because you got cold feet at the last minute. And you made a decision that affected not only your group, but possibly everybody, just based on what? Based on you got scared at the last minute? Based on the fact that you maybe just now realizing that you're risking your life? Because all y'all knew Moraine was lying when she said, we'll have to see what happens when we get there. Y'all knew, because you can hear in somebody's tone when they're lying. You can feel it in your gut. That's why I'm telling you, your gut doesn't lie to you. You could tell by what she said and the way she said it that she knew that was some chicken scratch. She knew it meant that anybody that's not the dragon gonna die. We know that as the audience because we saw it, but they knew it too, even if they didn't articulate it. Okay, and how do I know that? If you're ever in a situation where, and our military gentlemen can attest to this, and we've seen it on Star Trek, if you're ever in a situation where you have to order someone to their death, it doesn't matter what you say with your words. Your spirit and your tone and your vibe says, they ain't coming back. Just like if something is a suicide mission, you know that. If nobody says it, you know that, we ain't coming back from this. Okay? Because you can perceive truth on deeper levels than just your five senses. So that's what I mean when I say by the time this episode is over, just Matt's doing his own thing, which I told y'all. But Moraine has proven that she's like her own secret agent on her own little quest. And when she was the one that said it was arrogant for a man to think that he can handle the power and a man ended up breaking the world, she think I'm going to fix it, not we women going to fix it. She thinks I'm going to fix it. And my whole thought about that is, what's going to happen, baby, if you fail? Do you have a plan B? Do you have a backup? Do you have anyone in on what you're doing? See, because that's what Batman would do. If Batman, if I can handle it, Clark is ready, Diane is ready, Barry Wall is ready. I got something. Ray Palmer is ready. I got some kind of plan B to where if I even die in this, another one of my fellow Justice League members got to back up. And that's what I'm saying when they go into this thing and Matt just says, yeah, well, deuces. I'm like, okay, so what you going to do now, Moraine? What's going to happen if things don't play out the way you think? Because nobody knows what you're doing except the Aes Sidhe, and she can't ever tell, or else it's the end of her. So that means if it don't play out like you want, there's no one to rescue you. There's no one that understands what's going on, and the world's going to break again anyway, in spite of all of your machinations and all that. And I'm just like, yeah, no. You called him arrogant. You arrogant. You called him short-sighted. You short-sighted. Okay, that's just my take on it. So let me hear from you guys. Again, we're talking about Moraine and the Aes Sidhe relationship, which I know if Jeff is yelling at the screen, that means there is no more story justification possible left. Okay, because if it was, Jeff can put it together like nobody I know. Jeff can say, no, this is this and that is that, and then connect them. And you'd be like, huh, Jeff on to something. And Jeff yelling at the screen talking about, no, yeah, no.
Not having it.
So, Bracy, we're gonna start with you. Talk about that relationship, that secret relationship, and then them at the eye of the world, and Matt being like, "I'm out."
You know, there's another thing about this scene that bothers me is the fact that the previous episode we saw that when they were talking about Stepan and Moraine's thinking, I'm gonna go do this dangerous thing. I'm probably gonna die because, like, if she can just find the dragon, because she knows that only the dragon and the Dark One can do battle. Everybody else dies. So you get the idea that she's gonna separate herself from Lan at some point, and that she's gonna, be vaporized as these two elemental forces come together. Because she did say last episode, like, isn't there a way that a warder can be unbonded from their Aes Sedai? So she's thinking about this because Moraine's a planner. So I was like, okay, so she's considering that because she doesn't want him to suffer the same fate as Stepan when she eventually dies. But in this episode, we find out not only is their bond BS, but she can mute it. She can put him on mute. She can ghost him. It's like, oh, I can't feel you. What? No, you guys are supposed to always feel each other. Like, look, Stepan couldn't live without his, and presumably they have a tough time living without the other, even though the warders die. Like, how can you just put this soul bond on mute? No, I tell you, over and over again, this episode just breaks all the freaking lore. Now, like I said, I haven't read the books. I don't know the ins and outs of that. I can only go by what the show is giving us. But it just continuously breaks the lore over and over again. It's breaking the world building. It's breaking the story. This episode is horrendous on so many levels for that, with a couple of decent scenes here and there. So, like, I don't get that at all from a fan perspective, from a writer perspective. I don't understand what they're doing here, just trying to look at what they presented. And unless it all just comes across as convenience. This is what I need the story to do, so this is what the story is, and then that's not a story once you start doing that. When I start thinking about, and on top of that, the relationship, the secret relationship between Moraine and Siwan. Also, I understand them having a secret relationship, but I feel like the Aes Sedai should be like the Bene Gesserit. The Bene Gesserit is what you get if you want to see a solitarily dominant female force. Nobody has ever done it better than Frank Herbert. I mean, these women, Jessica was the only one out of their 1,000 generations who ever crossed the line, as far as any of the lore tells us. She's the only one who stepped out of place. She's the only one who, went against the grain, stepped out of her role. That's how the Aes Sedai should be.
Yes.
And these are women who understand sacrifice. They sacrifice everything for their complete goal, the Kwisatz Haderach at the end. Now, when you see all these women having all these secret relationships and stuff, that just breaks all the tenets of their order. They go into it, and this is a prevalent thing in this world. The Reds swear off of men because largely they join the Reds because they hate the men. The Amelin Seat has to sit alone, just like the Wisdom. I will take no partner. I will sire no children. It's like being at the wall. You're part of the Black Watch. You've got to have that sort of commitment to be in these positions. And they just, again, you can't trust anything they do because they throw away their system of government. They throw away their own personal convictions. All of this goes away. You might as well be dealing with a child Valda. It's like, oh, who says I keep my oaths? Nobody else does. We're all the same team. We're all not so great people. And that's what it feels like when they do that. When nobody has their moral code, when nobody sticks to their code, that's what you get. And why do they have to have this subterfuge? Okay, we understand that all these women are a little power hungry. They've all got their own agendas. They've all got their things going on. But don't we all have this one singular objective? Prevent the end of the world. Stop the Dark One. So why does Moraine have to have this super secret mission that we can't tell anybody else against? Later on we'll find out that the last time the Dark One was set against, the dragon came with like 90 Aes Sedai in tow. Why aren't we doing that again? It worked last time. But no, it's Moraine because I guess she's special. Because I'm really good at ordering the ambulance seat to get on her knees. I don't know, that it doesn't make any sense. The plot hole is enormous. You could fly the Death Star through it. It's so big. There is no point to this sort of thing. And so I'm determined to go back and read the books and find out. I just can't believe Jordan is making these sorts of mistakes. This feels like something's going on with this show only. So none of that works for me. And when I think about Matt, I'm glad to hear you say that, Steve. When I think about Matt, I keep thinking Matt is, I like Matt. I do like Matt. I hate the path he's going down. It's still interesting, though. There's something about Matt that I really like as a character, even though he's very, very flawed. Maybe because he's such an underdog. Once I see his upbringing, I can't help but root for him. But he's also a bit of a coward because he's always whining about wanting to go home, wanting to get back to his sisters, wanting to go home, wanting to go home, wanting to go home. And he chooses now to go off on his own. When in reality, anytime he wanted, especially when they're out of the company of Lan, he could have just left Rand. Any night that they're camped out, he could have slunk off. I get the feeling that Matt's very good at sneaking about, considering he's a bit of a sneak thief. He could have left Rand and, hey, man, you're going to go chase that girl down. That's fine. I'm going back home. That's all he ever had to do. So that when he chooses now to do it, it makes things a bit suspect in a way. And I know he just thought he was going to die and he came back. But I still feel like, he also lacks a certain amount of conviction, because if what he really wanted to do more than anything was go home, literally the only way to have stopped him would have been like Moraine and Lalandra would have had to have tied him to his horse and kept him going like that. It's very difficult to keep somebody whose sole purpose is to do one thing from doing that one thing. So that's where I'm at on all of this.
So at the end of the episode, it's like, you got a boyfriend, you got a girlfriend, you leading everybody to their death, and you a coward. Yeah, okay. Go ahead, Steve. What do you think? Moraine and Amberlin seat and the eye of the end of the girl next door chewing bubble gum on the wall.
Well, Jeff kind of
with the dragon tattoo on the train.
Jeff kind of hit on the major theme between these two, the common thread between these two major scenes, and that is the people running the show not doing what was in the books, and for various reasons. The real part of the problem with the Swan Moraine thing was that it comes out of nowhere. It was never in the books. Moraine was just basically acting, reporting to the Amberlin seat and just basically like being your secret agent. There was none of this stuff about a secret relationship. There was none of this that completely breaks the lore. And that's not to say that Jordan did it perfectly, but it would have been done. He did do it more, I will say, in a more refined way than what we see here. And as far as the other scene where Matt walks off, well, he wasn't supposed to leave in the books. He went with them in the original books. And what happened is apparently the actor who played Matt, for some reason, is off the show. I don't know why. There have been speculations. I don't know. I've heard he was on drugs. I've heard that he violated COVID policy and they got rid of him. I've heard that he had some other project that he was doing. Who knows what it was? But either way, this is the last time we see him in season 1, and he's going to be played by a different actor in season 2. So why? So this was the show writing him off, writing him into the sunset when originally Matt was along for the ride the entire time. And because of all of these behind the scenes stuff and changes that the showrunners made, none of these scenes turned out the way they were supposed to. And this is why you have all these problems, because, okay, if they had to make some changes, okay, fine, but you have to adjust them so that things make sense narratively with the world you've created, and they didn't do that. So everything basically is falling apart because of changes that they didn't know how to finesse in any way.
Yeah, but you don't have to do that. The actor just continues on, and then next season we just have another actor. There was no need to do that.
I don't know why they did that. Or you show the back of his double's head going into the gate.
Yeah. So either way, it was if somebody screwed up behind the scenes, and we're basically the story paid for it, and it's really unfortunate.
Wow.
I would have liked to have seen Matt, especially played by this actor, stick it all the way to the end of the first season and then have him off, because we would have seen, at least we would have gotten a resolution. Even if it was okay, Matt decides to be a hero at the end of the first season and he dies. If it had been that, I would have understood that. That would have been a reasonable ending for the character if that's what they wanted to do. But no, they want to have him back for the next season because this character sticks around for a long time. So yeah, they recast. Okay, fine, but you can't just say, "Oh yeah, he decides for whatever reason I'm not coming for the next 2 episodes." So all the stuff that we've been building up for 6 episodes is now pointless because we are never going to see a resolution to it in this season.
Did they not look up contract when they were casting this show?
I have no idea. I
mean,
I can't find any concrete details on what actually happened. I've read several articles and they all have different accounts. So I have absolutely no clue. It's a mess.
Wow. Okay. Nims, what do you think about all this?
Well, I'm going to start with that scene and go backwards. It's funny because I was going to mention the same exact thing. This is not in the books. My comment was going to be, did they run out of money to pay the actors? So
also possibility.
No, it's just that was the same thing. I was like, why all of a sudden are they dumping this guy? And then to find out that was just like, okay, so I don't know that I have much else to say about that. That is just shocking. Because now they've just written themselves into a huge hole, especially if they try and get back to where the story was.
Mm-hmm.
Holy mackerel. Okay. So let's go to the other interesting scene in the whole movie, or in the whole episode, but interesting for a completely different reason than the dagger scene was. Which is the lesbian scene there. It piqued my interest on one level. I will say that. But I agree with everything anybody said. It's like it came out of nowhere. It's not in the book. It breaks the lore. It's completely Game of Thrones. But I'm going to critique it from a different standpoint. Here you have these two who are supposed to be in a relationship, haven't seen each other for years. And she walks in and they have a discussion before they get to it. I don't know about any of you out there who have been in relationships, but you haven't seen your significant other for years. There aren't going to be a lot of words. That's all I'm going to say.
It's almost as if it was meant to be a discussion in the books, and then they turned it into a relationship for no reason.
Exactly.
What are the odds of that?
And then the only other thing I'm going to say, because I know we're running short on time, is that the whole vehicle to get to the secret rendezvous point for both of them is this, let's be generous, 2 foot by 2 foot mirror that she goes through to get to their secret room. Could a 2 foot by 2 foot mirror fit in a backpack or on a horse or anything like that? I don't know. I'm just I'm not a big time Hollywood writer, but I'm just wondering why this mirror stayed in that room all that time so that we could get this secret rendezvous, which doesn't even ring true. But that's just me.
I just looked up an article that was along the lines of what Steve was saying, and the first rumor was that it was because of COVID restrictions, but they said, that the timing doesn't work if that was a real deal. And they said that wasn't the actor's reasons, but we don't really know why the actor quit, whatever reason he quit. It wasn't because of COVID, but we don't really know why or whatever. But that's such a shocker until wow. And, Nemesis took the words out of my mouth when he's like, you go through this whole clandestine transportal type of bam thing into another dimension thing to hook up with your honey. And the emotions are so subdued and so kind of flat until I'm like, do y'all understand how people act in these kind of situations? Because it wouldn't be like that.
No,
it wouldn't. So
it would have been pure Cinemax, you know. So it was like you just put on raise the music level and just watch the show. That's what it would have been.
Oh, dude! After 9 months of AIT training, a long conversation is not the first thing I did when I got home to my girl.
Yeah.
And because of that, it makes me doubt the veracity of their love. What I'm hoping happens next season is that we see that they've also been using and playing each other, because that rings more true. Because two people that actually loved each other wouldn't have that kind of reaction. It seems more like Moraine has proven whoever used the word ruthless, that's on point. That even if I have to fake a relationship to get the freedom and the resources that I need to do what I'm trying to do, I'm willing to do that. So I can see them.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I can see them having a scene next season where one of them, somebody says, you know, it should be the ambulance seat saying, you know, silly girl, I knew I needed to motivate you some kind of way. And Moraine is like, what? And then we've got some real drama and tension going, because, you know, they got the tears in her eyes when she's swearing the vow and she's going into exile, and you see the power swirling and all that. But if we can see the ambulance seat actually, you know, earn her keep and say, you know, if we're playing 5-dimensional chess, I'm still 10 steps ahead of you, because I knew
Let me ask you guys.
You were the only Aes Sedai ruthless enough to do what needed to be done. If you said something like that, then I have respect for everything in the mix that we've seen, but I do not believe in this love.
Let me ask you guys one thing. When they're swearing on the rod, and she starts going like, you know, oh, you know, the cleverest pike, the lady of the rivers, like, if you guys are having a secret relationship, should you be talking to her all cooey, lovey-dovey, moony-eyed when you're getting exiled? That's like, hey, all these really smart women are in the room. I bet they're going to figure this out.
Okay,
yeah, that was another question that I had forgotten bringing up, but you brought this up. Why is nobody suspecting it's anything's going on? You would think that these people would be kind of looking at any found of favor,
any sign of weakness
with skepticism, and yet none of them do, because it wasn't originally supposed to be a relationship.
I'm sorry, I'm 12 years old and can't get past the fact that these two who are going to have a lesbian scene later on are swearing on the rod. I just.
Well,
you said it, I didn't.
Answer to your question, Jeff, is that is a movie rule. The movie rule is anybody that's having an affair, they've given it away so many times until everybody around them has to ignore it, or else you have no story.
Yeah.
So that is a movie rule, because everybody that's cheating gives these long, significant glances, and they hold on to each other too long. And I'm like, you are broadcasting to anybody with eyes that y'all got something going on, because you move differently around someone you're intimate with, and you can't help it. That's another one of them things that you perceive on a different level than your senses. When you've been intimate with someone, there's something going on between the two of you that cannot be played off or minimized or whatever just by your body language, because your whole spirit changes when somebody you love comes in the room, and you can't fake that. You can't is a scent. And one of my friends told me that when my kids come in the room, I just light up, and I light up so light until, and I'm like, because I'm happy. You can't fake that. You cannot fake that. Okay. And so you can't hide it when it happens either. So that's what I mean when I say, and then when you're dealing with an order of women who are more, you know, generally more sensitive, that kind of thing, or generally more perceptive, is, you know, is there a little bond going on and stuff like that. And they're all just clueless. And I'm like, you guys are just looking at each other like you're proposing instead of being exiled. And, you know, I half expected her to bring out a ring and will you marry me? And everybody, you know, everybody would have been shocked. That would have been a better scene than, you know, I swear on the holy ride that I'm, you know, blah, blah, and, you know, and this kind of stuff. And I'm like, no.
Then Aes Sedai Ellen DeGeneres comes out, marries them, and everything would have been cool.
All right, we're going to call it there. I will say that this is 2 episodes from the finale, and it's a pivotal episode, but like in all the wrong directions. Like the turns that this one took it in all the wrong places. We're stunned with the revelation about what Steve was saying about the actor playing Matt being gone for whatever reason. I was like, whoa. But still, every place this place goes is just like, And I'm still trying to figure out the purpose of the Ogier, the ogre. I'm still trying to figure out why he's there. Because,
he's the one who knows the ways.
Yeah. He's in the book. So.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, he's in the book.
Yeah, the paths were made by the Ogier, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, so like I said, I'm at the point in watching the series, and when I first watched this episode, I'm at the point in the series where I'm like, okay, I just want some answers. I just want this to be done. I'm just kind of done. So let's go ahead on and get to the conclusion. And that's, watching it again, I felt the same way. I'm like, okay, well, we need to, let's step it up or whatever. We don't need no more secret revelations and we don't need that. So, but anyway, so I want to thank my co-hosts. We're going to see this thing through to the end because sometimes we have more fun talking about it than the episode is itself. So I want to thank you so much, Nims.
No problem. And all you out there, don't at these guys about my Rod comment. Just at me, at me. It's me. It's all me. So
thank you so much, Bracy.
You can go ahead and at me. I'm still waiting for my ads from like the weird butt sex comment from a couple episodes back. So, come at me, bro.
Okay, and thank you so much, Steve.
It was me, Barry. anyway, looking forward to talking about the next couple of episodes. Things get interesting and not always in a good way, but it's still fun to discuss. And this show is still, I will say, it still entertains me to watch it, even when they screw up like they did here.
Well, if there's one thing I think we can all agree upon, we can all see the potential.
Mm-hmm.
This show is bursting with potential, but doesn't know how to really capitalize on it, doesn't really know how to bring it home like it should. So we're hoping that gets better because we've seen how that ends. We've seen this before. Great potential, great story, great everything, and then you just flush it down the longest toilet on earth.
With great potential comes great responsibility. So
that too. And on that note, I thank everybody that watched us live. Thanks to everybody that's watching the replay. Don't forget to check out the other things we have available on the Comic Crusaders website and YouTube channel. And this crew will see you next time on the next episode of Sloppy Spoilers.
Spoilers.